So guys, when I came across this biscuit or these cookies, I was like, what kind of cookies is this? Like Oxford Hookup biscuits. I was like, okay. So I had to go through the biscuit. When I bought it, I had to go through the biscuit. I tested it and I was like, oh boy. So I decided to give this biscuit a try on my own, like my own version of Oxford Hookup biscuit. So this was what I did. For the first method, I said, okay, let me start with 125 grams of all-purpose flour. So to that flour, I added my margarine. So you can also use butter if you have butter. So I added about 60 grams of margarine to the 125 grams of um, all-purpose flour. Then I went in with 50 grams of castor sugar. You can also use granulated sugar or fine sugar, but I use castor sugar, which is a little bit fine. Then I added 20 grams of milk powder, added half teaspoon of baking powder. So after adding the baking powder, I went in with about 5 grams of sweetened cocoa powder and then salt. I added about 1/8 teaspoon of salt. You don't need to add too much of salt to that. So after adding the salt, I went in and mixed everything together thoroughly. And after mixing everything together, combining everything together, I then make sure that I use my hands to mix the margarine with the dry ingredients to form crumbs. Okay, just like when you are making short crust pastry. So I make sure that I mix everything to form crumbs. After combining everything and forming the crumbs, I just set that aside. Then I brought about 30 grams of water. To that water, I added 1 tablespoon of golden syrup. Guys, this golden syrup was made by me. I made this golden syrup some time ago and I remember sharing this video with you guys. You can go and check it out, guys. So to that, I added 1 tablespoon of the golden syrup, half teaspoon of chocolate flavor, half teaspoon of vanilla flavor, 1 teaspoon of liquid browning, and a pinch of chocolate brown food color. So I mixed everything together. So after mixing that, I used about 5 eating spoons of that to form a dough with my already crumbs that I have made. So I added about 5 eating spoons of this mixture I made into the flour that I mixed with the margarine to form crumbs. I added it to that and I combined everything together to form a soft dough. And once my dough was formed, I set that aside and got my baking tray prepared. I lined the baking tray with baking paper. Then I went on to roll out my dough in between a baking paper, then cut the dough into shapes. Okay, I cut the dough into shape. I use my round cutter just because if you take a look at the pack of the biscuit or the biscuit itself, so I tried to get the shape of the biscuit itself. So that's what I tried doing by using the particular type of cutter that I used. So make sure you roll this thing at least almost flat, but not too flat, because the flatter it is, the more crunchy it will be when it's done baking. Okay, but if you make it too thick, it's going to be soft when it's baked, and you're not going to like it. So you have to make it kind of thin, so that by the time it bakes, it's going to rise because of the baking powder added, and then it's going to be very crunchy. Yeah. So I made sure that I cut everything out, and then using this cutter, I use the smaller part of the cutter to cut everything out, then place that on the baking tray I have already made. And once I was done placing on the baking tray, I had to poke each of the cookie dough with my fork. So this the holes I poked on the cookie dough will help to ease out air from the dough, so the dough will not puff up that much, but it's going to rise, and also it will also make sure that it keeps the dough crunchy once the dough is baked. So while I was done with the first one, I placed that in the oven to be baking. Then I went on with the second method. For this second method, I just use half of each of the ingredients, like 60 grams of flour, 30 grams of margarine, 2.5 grams of cocoa powder, just half of each of the ingredients I used for the first recipe. Even for the golden syrup, I use half tablespoon, just like I use 1 tablespoon in the other one. So I use half in this one. I use half teaspoon of the liquid browning. Used, I just used half of each of the ingredients I used in the first one. Then I added 1 tablespoon of water and mixed everything to form a soft dough. Once I was done forming the dough just the way I did in the first one, or the first method, I also went ahead and rolled out the dough. Like I told you guys, it should be flat but not too flat. I also cut it out, but this time around I used the big size or the medium size cutter. After cutting it, I also poked each one with my fork, just to make these holes for to ease out air, and also, just like I said before, then I baked my cookies in my preheated oven. I baked at 160 degrees C for 20 minutes. Okay, so you can find some of them that were more flatter than others, they are almost cooked better. So you can see how crunchy they came out. When you take them out from the oven, they are going to be kind of soft, but once they are completely cooled, they'll be crunchy. I almost done eating those big ones before I remember that I need to take a video and need to take a picture. So I hope this video helps you. So make your own Oxford hookup biscuit. See you guys in my next video. Bye.